Let me ask you a question. Have you ever solved an impossible problem? I have, and I'm going to show you how. Imagine being able to make a piece of paper slowly transform into an egg as it floats through the air. Become a human lottery machine and regurgitate named lottery balls from your mouth. And even learn how to control nature. In this book, I'm going to take you to the very darkest corners of my imagination, so you can learn my very best creations. These aren't pipe dream effects, they have methods that are designed to be performed. Everything you read has been performed thousands of times, from the smallest of audiences to the very biggest stages. You'll find magic with cards and coins, but also tricks designed for those who wish to be more adventurous. Tricks with a Venus flytrap, the stone of a peach, the inside of a walnut, and a gravity-defying balloon. My name is Ben Hart, and for the very first time, I'm inviting you to step inside of my mind.
How we doing, everybody? Luke Dancy here, joined by the one and only Mr. Ben Hart. Ben, how we doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. I hope you're doing well too.
I am, man. I am. You know, we're making the best of this weird time that we're all in right now. So it's fun to talk magic every now and then. So it's going to be a fun day today talking about your brand new book, The Darkest Corners, man. Exciting stuff.
I'm very excited to see it. It's very nice to see a project, kind of come to fruition and meet the end of the road.
Yeah, man. So why don't we kick this off? I've got a little tag up if you guys want to ask Ben any questions about the book or in general. Click on the player, and below the player will be a tag. You click on that and ask your questions. But Ben, you know, this book, just like any magic release or any product that has anybody's name on it, there's a piece of them with that product, with that thing. What is this book? What is this, the pages, what are they filled with? What is this, Ben Hart? What is this book?
Well, I think I've got it right here. I see I have to hold that up as a sort of, there it exists.
Oh,
I think
beautiful.
what was exciting about the book for me is it was a bit of a collaboration in a way, because it was written between me and my best and oldest friend, who was also a magician, called Neil Kelso. And so what it allowed us to do is it allowed me to have a critical conversation with myself through somebody who knows my material so well. So for me, what it represents is it began as a selfish exploration of my material to try to learn more about it through hearing other people's opinions of it. But it's ended up being quite an interesting kind of educational book, because you have two opinions talking about the same material. It allows us to analyze why I've made decisions that I've made and how these decisions could be applicable to the reader, and why these tricks are good and how they might be good for other people to do as well.
So my biggest question for you, and we have some questions already popping in, is as a performer, as a professional performer, you're out there doing this when things aren't like they are right now.
Right.
What made you want to put your work into a book and share it? What made you even want to do that in the first place? You know.
Well, the first thing is it's not all of my work, of course.
Sure.
I make a new show every year, and so I end up with material, sometimes more material than I need, or I end up with material that sticks with me for longer than I expected. And in fact, most of the material in the book represents the kind of backbone of my working act. I don't have any fear releasing that material, because any art form can only exist through some element of collaboration. And I'm very fortunate to work in other environments where I'm a collaborator within a team. I work as a magic consultant or in those types of environments where I'm one of many voices, and I'm very aware of the power of conversation and how you can improve through that conversation. And I put my material out there so other people can appraise it critically, and maybe I can learn from them too as part of that conversation.
Yeah.
I think in magic we deal with secrets, but what's so amazing about magic is the the kind of camaraderie and bond that we have as magicians working together in unity to protect our secrets. But they should flow easily between us so that we can improve our work.
Well said. Very well said. Yeah. And this was a hit at Blackpool. You lectured at Blackpool. This was kind of like the soft launch, I guess, of the book. I think you were kind of doing it there, and everyone was just raving about it. And it's also just it's a beautiful book. I've got a few pictures here, as you know, kind of queued up just to show the guys. This is the side, the edge of the book here, darkest corners. And then we've got the beautiful cover, which Ben's got it in his hands. We'll show it to you in a minute too. This is the inside, beautiful, full color. I mean, look at that, beautiful stuff. And then of course, a little full page action there of Ben Hart, not too shabby. So beautiful, beautiful book. And I see you over there looking through it right now. Yeah.
I am looking through it right now because, it's very fascinating process, because of course, most of my interaction with this book has been through it as as a kind of digital file. Then it becomes real and you realize, oh yes, some of those decisions made by the team were really very smart. The main thing is, of course, we needed a book that would be easy to read. As you know, from learning from magic books, you want a book that's actually user-friendly to physically hold. It should sit open. It should be. It should look nice. It shouldn't look too much like it's a magic book in case you have non-magicians come over. It should be the right level of covert, which I think this is. And yeah, I mean, we had some amazing photographs taken, and it looks really good. I'm very pleased with it.
That is certainly comment
I
after comment. Great looking book, beautifully produced book, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. People are loving the quality, dude.
I had this book. It's very interesting because there were lots of people involved in the creation of it. So for me, it's a very strange feeling. Yes, it's me, and it's my material, it's my ideas and my script and all of that. It's me in the photos, but I had that fortunate sort of. I feel a bit spoilt to have had all these people who know more than me help to make me look good. So.
And speaking of looking good, you were all over the TV over the last year. You were doing BGT, and I've got some pics of that as well. I've got you here on stage. Unfortunately, I couldn't show the videos of you because they're very quick to pull that down, as I mentioned to you before. Right. But we can't ignore the fact that you were on Britain's Got Talent and made quite a splash. People were raving about you and really fell in love with you and your character, and the level of respect you have for the art definitely was a shining factor with your appearance. And of course you left Simon a bit messed up too, so that's always fun.
I was very pleased. It was a terrifying process, as I'm sure any magician can imagine, but it turns out that all you need to do is be true to yourself. And that's what the audience at home can really feel. So I was very pleased to be able to basically do what I wanted to do without being kind of adulterated too much. My material was allowed to basically be kind of what it would be in the real world. And that was a really nice experience for me.
Well, and speaking of the real world, I've got some clips as well that you sent me earlier of you kind of in action performing some stuff. The material in the book, if you could kind of walk through what's in the book so people can kind of get an idea. I know there's ad copy and all that, but I've got you here. So why don't we kind of talk through some of that while I show a clip of you in action doing the Snow Witch. Yeah. So,
well, most of the material in the book, as I said earlier, is the kind of backbone of my working act. It has in it my egg on fan routine, which got me through the auditions of Britain's Got Talent. And I've been booked literally to travel to the other side of the world just to do that trick. It has a routine with a walnut, which was a feature routine in my show a couple of years ago, where there's lots of the book is about magic with nature. There's also a magic trick with a Venus flytrap. I'm very pleased to be the first magician ever to publish a magic trick with a Venus flytrap. There's a lot of material in the book, so it's kind of hard to summarize it. But it's focused mainly towards, I would say, a stand-up parlor or stage magician, although much of it will work in close-up, and I do most of it in close-up. But it specifically will encourage you to think about how to make your material feel more like real magic. Everything in the book deals with nature or some idea that feels like it could have come out of a Harry Potter plot. It is not coin matrices and that type of thing. It's not that type of magic. It's card tricks, but it is. I don't know. It's very hard to talk about your own material, actually.
I mean, that's why we got you here, though, so it's okay. It's okay.
I'm so used to performing for a lay audience where they respond to different things than magicians. And so I hope in this book we found the right balance between helping to inform the reader as to what might resonate with a lay audience, but also giving enough things that magicians will be excited by as well.
Yeah. What about the skill level of the stuff in the book? Is there material in here for all skill levels, or is this more for, the more seasoned performer?
Oh, I think most of this stuff is not, if you read a book on card magics, you might have to know a Pharaoh shuffle or whatever, like a pass or something. This book, it has no techniques like that in it. I mean, I would say that it's for an intermediate or above magician. But certainly some of it takes no skill whatsoever. Of course, that's a secret I don't normally tell because I like my audiences to just assume I've got great skill. But the truth is some of it's quite easy. There's a couple of tricks with thumb tips as a method and that sort of thing. Okay. And a lot of it's much more about the finding within yourself the performance ability that makes your sleight of hand invisible. And if you know how to perform a sleight, then it's invisible regardless of your technique. So very often, in fact, what always happens in my material is I start by trying to do the sleight of hand perfectly. And then I realize that level of perfection actually is making it weaker. And sometimes it's all about being bold and just doing it in the most efficient way possible. Sometimes that's more invisible. And we do talk about that in here.
Do you go over any stage presence or stage persona? Because Nick Marshall had a great comment. And a lot of people have talked about your stage presence is just beautiful to watch in itself. Like, do you go over any of that, or is it more the effects and the methods that you're teaching here?
Oh, well, because this book is sort of written through this extra out-of-body view of my material through Neil, he does touch on that, and we do talk in there we talk often about the development of the trick. And I think in talking about the development of the routine, you learn an awful lot about what my taste is and how that forms a kind of stage character. We talk about tools that you can use to help enhance your character on stage. Like, for example, in my show, I use live video camera. Now, lots of magicians are doing this, but in this book, we talk about why that's important. And there's a couple of theory essays in there for those who like theory essays, where I talk about ways to elicit more gasps from the audience, for example. Why are we always seeking applause when we could be seeking a gasp? Yeah, it's quite a rich book of both technique and theory, I think. We wrote the book so that it can be read cover to cover without needing the props in your hand. Okay. You could sit down and read this book just for enjoyment if you chose to.
Very nice. Is the Snow Witch included in the book? The piece that we're watching right now, is that something that's included in the book?
That's not in the book, but I don't claim any great originality of method within that. And indeed, what I like about that routine is the script, which I'm sure the viewers now are not hearing. But it looks pretty. It looks very pretty.
It's pretty telling, though, that you can have a classic piece like that and have it play. I mean, that clip ran for almost 5 minutes, and you're on stage and you're doing that, and it packs small and plays big. That's kind of a testament to you as a performer. You choose your material wisely as well. And Julio is saying he really likes your character. I think everyone kind of fell in love with your character on AGT. BGT. Just that classy guy that just, you felt you could see the confidence. I call it a quiet confidence, where you just seemed very comfortable on stage. But the real question is, were you really comfortable on stage?
Well, I'm very pleased that other people are helping me to understand what my character is. That's the main thing. In magic, we're always told, oh, you must find your character. Well, I don't. Most magicians don't know what their character is. We're informed by our audience. And of course, the more people who see your work, the more people tell you what your character is and the better understanding you get of it. By doing something like the Got Talent shows, suddenly tens of millions of people are seeing my character and telling me what it might be. So scientifically, that's been very useful. It's a good survey that we've done. Okay. But I was suitably nervous doing those shows. Live TV in front of lots of people in the highest rated show in British television is terrifying. But you've got to take some risks in your life, haven't you?
Yes.
I think a lot of performers are addicted to adrenaline and risk taking. And I sort of feel like if you're true to yourself and you're doing material that you know well, then what's the worst that could happen?
Well said. Very well said. Speaking of the material and performing, here's a great question. And again, guys, if you have any, let us know here. This one comes in from Kieran Fry on Facebook, saying, which trick from the book is your favorite one to perform? Do you have a favorite from the book?
Well, it's very hard because my favorites are changing all the time. I'm very attached to my routine with an egg on the fan, which has just been very good to me. It's everybody's looking for a trick that they do maybe better than anybody else and that gets them gigs over others for doing it. You know, that has been the one for me. But there's a very simple trick in here with a peach, which actually is probably the strongest trick that I do, because in my show, the whole routine only runs between 2 and 2.5 minutes. It's a very short trick. And the reactions the audience give to it are extraordinary, and the props it uses are really fascinating, and it's quite easy to do, and it packs very small. And I've played it in tiny theaters, I've played it in close-up, and I've played it in 8,000-seat arenas. It's so simple and small, but it's incredibly efficient. I like it when a magic trick is so efficient. Like, it's all about that battle, isn't it, between what you want to achieve and what you can achieve, and how complex it needs to be, and how you can make it simple and all that. And it just seems like a really nice balance. Having said that, there's also a routine in here with a walnut, which I think is probably my most baffling trick. And I take great pride in knowing that it fools most magicians, again, because it's so simple in method. So there's most of this I love. All of it I love, because we wouldn't have put it in here.
Yeah.
The amount of work that goes into a book, I'll tell you now, all that time thinking about your material, if you don't love it, it would never make it in the book, right? Because you have to think about it for days and weeks and listen to the editors saying, oh, why do you do things that way?
It's true. Yeah. Very true. And Mike Miller, my buddy, he picked his up at Blackpool, I think, the book, and he says the peach is also his favorite. So some people out there thinking in the same way.
Good.
Sanjeet wants to know, can the effects be done close up? Is this more of a parlor stand-up? The material in there, is it more for that, or could it be done close up too?
None of this was made specifically to be done in a parlor or close-up environment.
Okay.
I have done every one of these tricks in a close-up environment. Having said that, I have done the routines a lot in a stage environment to know that my technique is good enough that I can get away with them in a more intimate environment. I would say that if you're an experienced performer my friend Faye Presto calls it grand close-up, when you're doing perhaps a close-up show for a big table, for example, then you could do all of this. If it's like a parlor magic environment, yes. None of these tricks require distance to create the deception. You wouldn't want to do any of this stuff in walkabout or table hopping.
That's fair, man. Yeah, that's great point.
But I would say, if you are a walkabout magician or a table hopping magician, the takeaway lessons in this book are still applicable to any other environment, because, for example, my approach to stage magic is more, I'm prepared to take different risks to other stage magicians, because I'm prepared to push, at least by my understanding of it, I'm prepared to push what I'm prepared to, for example, prepare before the show, or the work I'm prepared to put in. And I think that those lessons could be applied to magic you do in walkabout as well. But yes, if you're doing sort of an actual show in close-up, you could do this. But yeah, it's not for doing in nightclubs or doing at restaurants.
Gotcha. Okay. Real quick question. I don't know if you have the number off the top of your head. Brandon Sheffield wants to know how many effects are in the book. I think we might have lightly covered that, but I don't know if we have the exact number mentioned.
I think I'm going to count now. I've got my copy here.
And if you guys have any questions, let us know.
There's definitely more than 10. It's probably 12 or 14 or something like that, but don't count me on that, because.
Cool.
But there's my question is, how many tricks do you need to learn in one book?
Well said. Very well said.
Because we basically wrote until we felt that it was a book, and then we kind of stopped writing. I didn't hold anything back deliberately. It just sort of ran its natural course and felt like a good curation of ideas.
Jamie Scott says the Matchbox effect is beautiful for walk around. So that's one of his favorites for walk around.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
Right
Good to
right
know. Well, actually, funnily enough, that trick with the matchboxes, you could do that. I started doing it one-on-one for people, just me and a friend in a room. And I've also done it on very big stages.
Oh, cool.
So sometimes the trick, I don't really think there's a difference between close-up magic and stage magic anyway, but that is its whole other conversation for another time.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. True that. We got a question in from John Shackelford over here on Facebook. And thank you guys for all the great questions. Keep them coming. I've got Ben for about another 5-10 minutes or so. How often do you have to put a routine on the back burner, or what would be a typical issue? So do you have to put tricks kind of, on the back burner and come back to them later, or stuff like that?
I'm very stubborn. So, well, I'm very stubborn, but also I have the benefit of I do a lot of shows for the public.
Right.
And so for me, the time between, it's like scientific testing, isn't it? For me to test a new idea, I can do that multiple times a week because of my schedule. So I can do a trick one night and adjust it and do it again the next night. So for me, it's quite rare for something to fail. Like, I'm not explaining this very well, but because I'm doing a lot of shows, it's unlikely that I will meet a problem that I can't solve, because I get to look at it from many different angles through the sheer volume of alternative ideas. And so it's rare now that things have to go on the back burner, because I really write things in such detail that I kind of know that I like it before I've even gone about seeking the method or building the props. And then once I have them, I can adjust the script I can do it 5 times in 1 week, so I can solve the problems in that way. It's been a long time since I've started something and had to put it away. I'm cautious about what I start work on. I don't just dip in. I don't just dip in and say, "Oh, I'll give that a go." I really think I was working for about 10 years, knowing I wanted to do a snowstorm routine. It's about 10 years before I then thought, right, I didn't ever touch the props because I didn't need to. I was just looking for a presentational angle. Yeah. And then it comes and you say, right, I got it. Same with the egg routine in the book. I first started work on that in 2004. I did, I was a kid or something. I was like a little tiny teenager. I did it maybe 20 times, didn't do it for 10 years. And then suddenly it arrived in a new form, fully finished. So now I'm still dealing with ideas I've thought about before. That's a really rubbish answer to your question.
No, it's not at all, man. It's not at all. Trust me.
I would generally say, if you're going to put an idea on the back burner, consider killing it forever.
Wow.
Or waiting until it presents itself finished to you.
Okay.
Like I think some Steinmeier quotes, I can't remember who the quote originally comes from, but I heard it through Steinmeier, about every problem contains and suggests its own solution. Okay. If there's a problem in your routine or your idea, the solution is somewhere within it. You just have to find the right time to discover it. Patience.
Yes, well said. Cameron Young wants to know, what effects are in the book not used in your Blackpool show? Are there some things that were not? Oh,
yeah. There's loads. Yeah. I think in the Blackpool show I can't remember what I did actually, but I did three of the shows, 3 of the tricks.
Okay.
Yeah, in the show, and there's an awful lot more in here. Yeah, but if you like that type of material, then it's all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and Blackpool was a phenomenal time. You told me earlier this was your first time doing Blackpool, yeah? A performer.
Yeah, it's my first time as a performer. Yeah, I've been to Blackpool. I mean, we're all lucky in the UK that we have this huge convention that everybody else has to travel all the way around the world for. So I've been to Blackpool many times, 10 or 20 times or something, since I was a tiny kid. But this was my first time as a performer, and the experience was really amazing because the convention were really good to work with, but the audiences were great. It was my first magic lecture, proper lecture, full-length lecture, and suddenly you're in Blackpool. It's like the biggest lecture in the world. Mm-hmm. You couldn't be more people in a lecture. The reaction was amazing. And yeah, it was a really kind of defining moment in my career to make that between knowing your material works for the public to suddenly knowing your material works both for the public and also your peers.
Yeah, yeah, dude. And it is definitely a different experience if you're booked for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Um, Here's a good question from John Czar. And we could kind of get to know you a little bit through this question. Who is your favorite magician? Or more importantly, who are some of your inspirations? Because you definitely have a very unique and cool style, but where did this all kind of come from?
Well, that's a really hard question. You're
Yeah.
asking me questions I've been asking myself all of my career.
Oh,
I wake
wow.
up in the middle of the night asking myself, who am I? What are my inspirations? I mean, magicians that come to mind are Penn and Teller. They're still making more new original work than anybody else. It's still more challenging and interesting and arresting than anybody else. They've been doing it for decades. Simon Drake in the UK, who made just material that felt like he was influenced by so many more things than magic. I love storytelling magic. I was very influenced by Eugene Berger and René Levand. I love magic methods, and I was lucky to know Ali Bongo when I was a teenager in magic. Ali Bongo helped with my act. He was a great method kind of thinker. We've been spoilt in the UK because our most famous magician for 10 years or so was Darren Brown, who was really doing live shows. And so for me, growing up in magic, I was going to watch Darren Brown's shows when I was still forming my ideas of what magic was. So I'm very lucky to have that. I've had that experience. So I think those are the main names in magic. But it took me a long time to find the right balance of what worked on stage. I was doing terrible magic when I was a teenager, like awful stuff that's so hideously embarrassing. I hope
I think
nobody
we
ever
all
sees
do,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and the main thing is that I went out and tried to find environments where I could perform very often. You just have to be doing a lot of shows and making a lot of mistakes to learn what you are. Oh, I thought Faye Presto has been a huge influence on my magic because her magic is just in the UK. Every time I go and work in close-up gigs, people say, "Oh, have you seen Faye Presto? She's like a megastar here, but she's not necessarily to the public, but in the real world."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And she taught me so much about giving the audience what they want and understanding that actually sometimes you can take a simple method and many things. I've had a lot of influences, and I think we must all keep looking outside of magic as well. You find inspiration outside of magic. I'm particularly inspired by listening to the way film directors or artists talk about their work, because they also imagine a world, they imagine something impossible, and they make it a reality. So if you're looking for inspiration about interesting, charismatic people, look at some interviews of famous film directors. They always inspire me.
Cool. Getting towards the end of this, I've got a last question, and then I've got one from me that I'd like to ask you as well. Let me bring this one on here. Tom Brace wants to know, how many years did you do the Fringe, the Edinburgh Fringe? I know that was a big thing that you did. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done I don't know.
It's a
I've
lot, I
done.
guess.
I can. If you give me a second to think, I can tell you. I did. I've done at least 7.
Okay.
And I've done the Adelaide Fringe in Australia, which is a very similar festival, twice. And I was going to be going back to Edinburgh this year, but unfortunately the whole festival's been cancelled, which is a real shame to me, because I was due to play this very big space, and I was really felt ready to kind of push over into the next level there. But anyway.
Speaking of that, my last question to you as we start to roll out of here is, what have you been doing to kind of pass the time during this strange time that we're all living in? We're all kind of stuck at home trying to make the best of it. What have you been doing to kind of like pass the time and make it productive if you can? Yeah.
I've come to Devon, which is a very rural, beautiful part of the world in the UK, where there isn't anything to do other than enjoy the countryside. I'm right by the sea. In fact, I can see the sea out of the window right there, and I have no magic with me. Nothing. I have a thread reel. That's it. And I now have a copy of my own book, so I'm quite magically starved, and I'm just doing a lot of self-reflection. I was in the middle of a tour when all of this hit. And I had to stop the tour 60, 70 or more dates left ahead of me as part of this tour. So it hit me pretty hard. So in amongst all of the depression, I've just been focusing on improving my show for the future. I've been just thinking about new ideas, and this book's come at a good time because now I can tell people about the book without having to feel so upset about not having real audiences to perform for.
Yeah.
But I think I'm kind of staying the right side of sane at the moment. Who knows? I've started writing another thing. I'm working on my show, keeping busy.
Sounds good. I think that's
as busy as you can do when you don't have, you know, my entire occupation is kind of gone for the moment, which is very weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's kind of in the same boat, and we're all just kind of floating around trying to figure it out. But
I've been talking to a lot of magicians, which has been great, and catching up with friends.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And
it kind of unites us in a way.
Yes, it does. And that's what I was going to say too about this. It gives me a chance to actually talk to you, because normally you'd be too busy to do this. So
it would be showtime. Every day at about 8 p.m. my body, I feel that my adrenal glands are releasing something which I can normally use in the show, and now they're not. So every day at about this time I start to get very energetic.
Well, I'm glad we had a chance to sit down with you to talk about the brand new book. I'm going to show a couple of the pictures again. I know you've been showing the book as well. This is, of course, Ben. Big, beautiful picture. Yes, there you are. There you are. Of course, we've got some of the pictures on the inside here. Nice color pictures. I've got the cover here. Beautiful cover. And then you've got the side there, like the spine of the book there. Beautiful stuff from our friends over at Vanishing Ink. They definitely are all about quality. And Ben Hart, you are definitely all about quality too. Your work speaks for itself. So thank you for sharing that with the magic community.
Much.
And thank you for sharing your time with us today.